What if the sun exploded tomorrow? Imagine waking up to a morning that feels familiar. The golden light spilling gently through the window, the warmth of its rays touching your skin as it always has. Yet hidden in that light is a final message, the last whisper of a star that has sustained life for billions of years. To ask this question is to step into a vision both awe-inspiring and unsettling. For the sun is not only a source of heat and light, but the anchor of our very existence. The rhythm by which our days and nights have been measured, the heart around which the earth and all its life revolves. If the sun were to explode tomorrow, every comfort and certainty we know would unravel in a cascade of consequences, stretching from the intimate to the cosmic. It is a question that slows the breath and invites us into a journey of reflection. For in imagining the sudden end of the sun, we are invited to contemplate not only our fragile dependence, but the vast web of connections that bind us to the universe itself. In the first moments after such a cataclysm, light and energy would surge outward with unimaginable force. But because of the distance between Earth and Sun, about 150 million kilometers, the shock of that explosion would take just over 8 minutes to arrive. For those few minutes, life would continue as though nothing had changed. People would sip their coffee, children would laugh on their way to school, birds would trace their paths across the sky, and none would yet know that the star above them had already ceased to exist. This delay, that quiet gap between cause and consequence, paints a surreal picture of how fragile and delayed our awareness of cosmic events truly is. It is as though reality itself grants us a final breath of ordinary life before the extraordinary shatters it completely. When the light of the explosion reaches Earth, the transformation would be instant and absolute. The brilliant warmth we associate with sunrise would be replaced by a searing radiance, a wave of energy so intense that it would strip away the atmosphere, ignite the surface, and end all biological life in a cascade of heat and destruction. Oceans would boil, forests would ignite, and the delicate balance that allows for breath, growth, and life would collapse in an instant. Yet as terrifying as this vision is, it also reveals a truth often hidden beneath the familiarity of daily living, that life on Earth exists within a delicate balance, sustained by a single star. To lose the sun is to lose not only warmth, but the very possibility of growth, of time, of rhythm, of continuity. Yet let us slow the vision, step back, and explore the nature of the sun itself. The sun is not an eternal flame, but a sphere of plasma, a fusion reactor where hydrogen fuses into helium, releasing energy that radiates outward and bathes our world in light. For billions of years it has burned with stability, maintaining a delicate equilibrium between the inward pull of gravity and the outward push of fusion. This balance is what has allowed life to flourish, seasons to pass, and civilizations to rise. But like all stars, the sun is mortal, destined one day to exhaust its fuel and transform into something else. Scientists tell us this transformation will not occur for billions of years, long after humanity has changed, beyond recognition, or perhaps even ceased to exist. But to imagine the sun exploding tomorrow is to compress cosmic time into a single day, to bring the distant into the present, and in doing so, to feel the fragility of existence with an intensity that cannot be ignored. Consider the broader solar system. If the sun were to explode, the planets that circle it would be cast adrift, released from the gentle gravitational embrace that has held them in steady orbits for eons. Earth would no longer circle a luminous anchor, but would instead hurtle through the dark void of interstellar space, a cold and lifeless sphere carrying the remnants of what once was. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and the countless smaller bodies of the solar system would follow the same fate, wandering endlessly, stripped of the warmth and order that defined their being. The explosion of the sun is not merely an end for Earth, but a disintegration of the cosmic family to which we belong, a scattering of worlds once bound together by light. Imagine the silence that would follow. Without the sun, there is no day, no cycle of dawn and dusk, no measure of hours and seasons. Darkness would envelop what remains of Earth, broken only by the pale light of distant stars. But even those stars would offer no warmth, no sustenance, only reminders of the light that was lost. It is a vision of profound stillness, a silence so complete that it seems to echo within the imagination. And yet within that silence, there lies a reflection on the meaning of time itself. For time as we know it is tied to the sun, to its rising and setting, to the way it arcs across the sky and marks the passage of days and years. Without the sun, time loses its familiar rhythm and becomes something abstract, a measure of existence without the heartbeat of light. Let us now imagine the human response. For those 8 minutes before the shockwave arrives, people would continue their routines in ignorance. When the blast reaches Earth, it would be too swift for action, too absolute for resistance. But in the moments leading up to the end, the question arises, what would we think, what would we feel if we knew that in 8 minutes the sun would explode? Would fear overwhelm us? Or would there be a strange serenity in knowing that all life shares the same fate in that instant? Philosophers have long asked us to contemplate mortality, to remember that life is fleeting, but rarely do we imagine mortality on a planetary scale, shared equally by every creature, every tree, every ocean, every mountain. The explosion of the sun invites us into that ultimate reflection, where the boundaries between individual and collective dissolve in the immensity of cosmic finality. Science fiction often imagines scenarios where humanity finds a way to survive such events, where spacecraft carry people to distant stars, or technology shields us from the fury of cosmic forces. But in truth, no technology could protect us from the immediate consequences of a stellar explosion so near. The energy released would dwarf anything we could imagine, a force beyond resistance. And yet, in contemplating this impossibility, we are reminded of the preciousness of the present, of the fragile miracle that life continues day after day, under a sun that has not yet reached its end. Pause here and consider how life has always been shaped by the sun. Plants unfurl their leaves to its light, animals migrate according to its cycles, humans build calendars, rituals, and civilizations around its presence. The entire mythologies across cultures worship the sun as a god, a source of life and power, and for good reason, for it is indeed the source of all that lives here. If the sun were to explode tomorrow, all those myths, all those rituals, all those memories would dissolve into a single truth, that without the sun, there is no life. Its explosion would be the greatest reminder of our dependence, the final echo of every prayer and every harvest ever offered in its name. As we move deeper into this reflection, let us not dwell only on destruction, but also on the beauty of perspective it brings. To imagine the sun's sudden end is to realize how precious its presence truly is. Each sunrise is not a routine event, but a gift. Each beam of warmth a reminder that we are sustained by forces vast and ancient. In the quiet of this thought, we are invited into gratitude, into a deeper awareness of the miracle of ordinary life. The sun may not explode tomorrow, but the possibility reminds us that nothing is guaranteed, that life itself is always perched on the edge of uncertainty, and that to live fully is to cherish the present as though it were our last dawn. What if the sun exploded tomorrow? The question lingers in the imagination, like a bell echoing across a vast canyon, reverberating deeper with every repetition. If such an event were to occur, it would not only reshape the physical reality of the solar system, but also transform the way we think about life, death, and the fragile miracle of existence. To dwell on this vision is to walk a path that blends astronomy with philosophy, science with spirituality, and fear with awe. The sun has always been a symbol of constancy, a presence so reliable that we have built our understanding of time itself around its daily journey across the sky. Its sudden absence would not merely end physical life, but unravel the very meaning of rhythm, order, and continuity that guides our inner sense of reality. Imagine civilizations of the past, who gazed upward at the sun with reverence and fear, weaving stories of gods and heroes around its blazing power. They could never have imagined the scientific truth we now know, that the sun is a nuclear furnace fueled by fusion, balancing precariously between gravity's inward pull and energy's outward push. Yet even with this knowledge, even with equations and telescopes and models, the awe remains. To think that tomorrow it could explode is to confront the vastness of forces beyond control, to feel the same mix of terror and reverence our ancestors must have felt when they bowed to its light. The difference is that now we understand just how final such an explosion would be, and in that understanding lies both a gift and a burden. Consider how the news would spread in those 8 minutes of borrowed time if somehow humanity knew. Scientists might detect the anomaly, the sudden change in solar activity and sound alarms, but could 8 minutes ever be enough for billions of people to comprehend that all of existence was about to end? Perhaps some would reach for loved ones, clinging to connection in the final breaths. Others might gaze skyward in disbelief, unable to accept that the light they see is already the echo of a star that no longer exists. The human heart, so often caught in the minutiae of daily life, would be confronted with the ultimate perspective, that everything we struggle for, everything we argue about, everything we cherish, fares dwarfed by the immensity of cosmic time. Yet this reflection is not only about endings, but also about beginnings. Stars explode not only in destruction, but in creation. The heavy elements that form our bodies, our bones, our blood, were forged in the hearts of stars that exploded long before the sun was born. If the sun exploded tomorrow, its fragments would scatter across space. And though Earth itself would be destroyed, the particles would eventually drift and combine, perhaps one day seeding new stars, new planets, new forms of life. In this way, the explosion of the sun is not only a vision of death, but also a reminder of the cycle of rebirth written into the universe. To end is also to begin, and even in the vast cold of destruction, the seeds of future life would be carried outward into the cosmos. This vision also invites us into a more intimate reflection. What would we do if we knew that tomorrow the sun would explode? How would we spend our final day? Would we waste it in distraction and routine? Or would we open ourselves fully to the presence of life, to the beauty of the sky, the sound of laughter, the touch of another hand? Perhaps the gift of this thought experiment is that it strips away illusion, revealing what truly matters. If the sun exploded tomorrow, the wealth we hoard, the power we chase, the grudges we hold would dissolve into irrelevance, leaving only the raw truth of connection, presence, and love. Now let us imagine the wider universe watching. Distant civilizations, if they exist, might detect the flare of the sun's explosion millions of years from now, seeing in their telescopes the brilliant death of a star that once nurtured a blue planet rich with life. To them, it would be a point of light in the sky, a distant spectacle, beautiful and tragic but far removed from their own existence. In this way, we are reminded of the scale of the universe, how our greatest catastrophe would be but a flicker of light to distant eyes. Yet for us within this system, it would be everything. The contrast between perspective and experience, between cosmic scale and human intimacy, is one of the most humbling truths of existence. Pause and breathe with the thought of darkness. Without the sun, even for a moment, Earth would become unmoored. Within hours, temperatures would plummet, winds would rage as the atmosphere collapsed into chaos, and oceans would begin to freeze from the surface downward. Life as we know it would not survive long. Yet the planet itself might endure, drifting silently through space as a frozen relic, carrying the memory of a civilization that once thrived under the light of its star. And so we are reminded that survival is not guaranteed, that life itself is a fragile thread, woven into the tapestry of cosmic events. But here is where the reflection deepens. If the sun could explode tomorrow, and if we knew it, would we regret how we have lived today? Would we see clearly the moments we wasted in anger, the days we spent in fear, the opportunities we let slip because we assumed there would always be more time? To imagine the sudden loss of the sun is to imagine the sudden loss of time itself, and in doing so we are called to live more fully, to embrace each day as though it were our last dawn. This does not mean living recklessly, but living with awareness, with gratitude, with the courage to be present in the fleeting miracle of existence. The sun's explosion, though imagined, brings us face to face with the paradox of life, that it is both fragile and resilient, fleeting and eternal, insignificant in scale yet infinite in meaning. Each heartbeat, each breath, each glance of light upon water carries within it the echo of the universe, the same forces that forged stars and galaxies. To contemplate the sun's end is to contemplate our own place within that immensity, to see ourselves not as separate, but as part of the vast unfolding of creation and destruction that defines the cosmos. What if the sun exploded tomorrow? If such an unimaginable event were to unfold, it would not only erase the familiar world we inhabit, but also cast a profound reflection on what it means to be alive. The sun has always been more than a star in the sky. It is the heartbeat of our solar system, the silent metronome by which all life keeps time, the fire that has nurtured every seed, every breath, every moment of warmth in human history. Its sudden eruption would be an ending written in brilliance and terror. Yet within that vision, there lies a lesson about impermanence and the value of presence. Consider the silence that would follow. In the moments after the explosion's light reached us, the roar of human civilization would falter. Planes would no longer cross the skies. Machines would fall still. Cities that once pulsed with energy would grow quiet. The laughter of children, the rhythm of conversation, the hum of engines, all would be carried for a fleeting moment in an eerie stillness, as if the earth itself were holding its breath. And then, as the light faded into chaos, the cold truth would settle upon the world. Without the sun, without its warmth, without its life-giving energy, the story of humanity would be rewritten not in years or centuries, but in hours and days. Yet to imagine this is not only to dwell on catastrophe, but to look inward. The sun's imagined explosion becomes a mirror, reflecting our relationship with existence. How often do we take for granted the rhythm of dawn and dusk, the way the sky shifts from violet to gold, the warmth that spills over our skin on a summer afternoon? We move through life as though these gifts are infinite, forgetting that even stars have lifespans, and even constants can vanish. To envision the sun exploding tomorrow is to be reminded that permanence is an illusion, and that the true gift of life is not its duration, but its immediacy. Now imagine the perspective of future worlds. Somewhere in the distant galaxy, a being may look up into its night sky thousands of years from now and see the afterglow of our star's demise. To them it would be beauty, pure and distant, perhaps inspiring art, poetry, or questions of their own place in the cosmos. They would never know that within that light lived a planet of oceans and forests, of laughter and sorrow, of dreams and stories, of humanity. To them it would be simply another star's farewell. In this perspective we find humility. Our greatest fear, our ultimate ending, is but a flicker in the tapestry of the universe, no more and no less significant than countless others. And yet for us the sun's explosion is everything. It is the loss of warmth on a winter morning, the loss of growth in the soil, the loss of the very rhythm by which our hearts beat. It is the end of stories yet unwritten, the silence of music yet unsung. And still within that thought lies a gentle truth. To know that the sun could vanish, even hypothetically, is to awaken to the value of the light it gives now. Every sunrise is a gift. Every golden afternoon is a miracle. To realize this is to step more fully into the present, to breathe more deeply, to see more clearly. If the sun exploded tomorrow, would we be ready to let go of the world as it is? Would we be ready to say that we loved enough, that we saw enough, that we lived enough? These questions are not meant to bring fear, but to invite awareness, to guide us into a state of presence where every moment is recognized for its rarity. The thought of the sun's end is a meditation on fragility, a reminder that life is precious precisely because it is finite. Let us also reflect on the cosmic cycle of death and rebirth. A star's explosion scatters the building blocks of creation across the universe. In its ashes lie the seeds of new stars, new planets, new forms of life yet to be imagined. If the sun exploded tomorrow, its essence would not vanish but would be carried into the infinite expanse, woven into new constellations, new galaxies, perhaps even into the consciousness of beings yet unborn. In this way, death is never absolute. It is transformation, a shift in form, a passage from one state of being to another. This too is a lesson for humanity. Our endings are not endings alone. They are transitions, part of the greater rhythm of the cosmos. The thought experiment of the sun's explosion is vast, terrifying, and strangely beautiful. It invites us to hold two truths at once, that we are infinitely small in the scale of the universe, and yet infinitely significant in the intimacy of our lived experience. For even if our light is brief, it is real, it is meaningful, and it shines within the greater fabric of existence. As this reflection draws gently toward its close, imagine once more the sun hanging in the sky, its light spilling across mountains, rivers, and oceans. Imagine knowing that tomorrow it might be gone. Would you not cherish the warmth more deeply today? Would you not speak words of kindness more freely? Would you not pause to watch the horizon glow as the day unfolds? This is the invitation hidden within the question. To live as though the sun might explode tomorrow is to live awake, present, and grateful. To honor the fragile miracle of life, not in fear but in wonder. And so, the question lingers, soft yet powerful. What if the sun exploded tomorrow? The answer is not only in the science of stars, but in the choices we make now, in the way we treasure the fleeting moments of light and love that define our human story. For one day, whether in cosmic scale or in personal life, our suns will set. The gift is to see, to feel, and to live before they do. What if the sun exploded tomorrow? To extend this reflection even further, let us return to the most intimate level of experience, to the quiet moment when one individual stands beneath the sky and feels the warmth of the sun upon their face. That warmth is not only energy traveling across space for millions of miles, it is a bridge, a connection between the vastness of the cosmos and the tender immediacy of human life. If that bridge were to collapse in a sudden explosion, what would remain is not only the absence of light, but the echo of meaning carried in every life touched by that light. Imagine for a moment that each memory, each act of kindness, each creation born under the glow of the sun is a spark that endures beyond the star itself. Even if the sun's physical body were to vanish, the stories it inspired, the art it illuminated, the civilizations it nurtured would ripple outward, carried in minds, in culture, in echoes that outlast their source. In this way, the sun's imagined explosion teaches us that while physical light fades, the light of presence, of connection, of meaning continues to shine in ways not bound by stars or galaxies. It is a meditation on continuity that transcends matter, reminding us that the true brilliance of existence lies not only in what the cosmos gives, but in what we choose to create with it. And so as the vision rests in your mind, let the thought settle like twilight after a long day. The sun, whether it remains for billions of years or were to vanish tomorrow, is both a star and a symbol. It is a reminder that life is fragile, radiant, and fleeting, and that its value comes not from its permanence, but from its presence. To live as though its explosion could come at any time is to live in gratitude, in wonder, and in reverence for the gift of each moment. And as you carry this question with you, may it not weigh heavy with fear, but rest gently as an invitation, a reminder to awaken more fully to the miracle of light, of life, and of love. What if the sun exploded tomorrow? To imagine such an event is to invite the mind into a landscape both terrifying and profoundly reflective, for it would not only alter the physical reality of our solar system, but would also ripple through every layer of human thought, belief, and experience. Let us return gently to the very first instant after the sun's sudden eruption. A great burst of light and energy, brighter than anything the human eye has ever witnessed, would blaze across the heavens. For those alive in that moment, there would be no time for analysis or preparation, only awe, only a final glimpse of brilliance before the familiar rhythm of day and night dissolved forever. The streets of our cities would pause in silence. The laughter in parks, the conversations in cafes, the footsteps in stations would stop, as if the earth itself were listening. And then the realization would sink in that the source of warmth and life had been torn apart, leaving only fragments, glowing shards scattered into the void. Slowly, the consequences would unfold. Within hours, darkness would claim the sky. The blue that we take for granted would fade into a deep and endless black, pierced only by distant stars whose light feels cold compared to the sun's embrace. Within days, the warmth that nourishes oceans and fields would drain away. Crops would wither, rivers would freeze, and the air itself would sharpen into a biting chill. Yet in this imagined descent, there would also be moments of resilience. Families would gather together, not out of habit but out of necessity, seeking warmth in closeness, comfort in presence. Communities would light fires, tell stories, sing songs that echo not with despair but with remembrance, honoring the star that had watched over humanity since the dawn of time. The sun's explosion would become not only the end of an era, but a final invitation to connection, reminding us that in the face of cosmic fragility, it is togetherness that carries meaning. Step now into the realm of science. For astronomers and physicists, the sun's explosion would represent a phenomenon both tragic and extraordinary. Instruments that once measured distant galaxies would turn toward the debris of our own star. Sensors would register waves of radiation, particles racing outward faster than comprehension, reshaping the magnetic fabric of the solar system. The Earth's magnetosphere would flare. Auroras would blaze across the skies in colors never seen before. shimmering curtains of light rippling over every continent, as if the heavens themselves were saying farewell. And yet, even as the data flowed, the knowledge would be bittersweet. For those who studied it would know they were recording humanity's final chapter under the warmth of a star. Consider also the other planets. Mercury, closest to the Sun, would be consumed almost instantly, swallowed in fire. Venus, already a world of heat and pressure, would be torn apart by shock waves, its clouds scattering into cosmic dust. Mars, the planet humanity once dreamed of colonizing, would witness the same fate as Earth, its frozen plains plunging into deeper silence. Beyond them, the gas giants would glow faintly with reflected debris, their moons shrouded in veils of light and shadow. The entire solar system, once a family orbiting its radiant heart, would drift into darkness, each planet a wandering echo of what once was. Now let the vision expand into philosophy. If the Sun exploded tomorrow, what would humanity think in its final hours? Some would turn to faith, praying to gods for salvation or mercy. Others would seek meaning in science, reflecting that all stars must eventually die, and that we are simply part of a greater cycle. Still others would embrace art, painting, writing, singing in the face of inevitable silence, leaving behind fragments of beauty, even as the light fades. In each response, we see the resilience of the human spirit, the determination to create meaning, even when the universe itself withdraws the stage upon which life has unfolded. Imagine, too, the cultural echoes. Religions would interpret the Sun's explosion as prophecy, as fulfillment, as a message from the divine. Philosophers would ask if existence itself is defined by light, and if without the Sun, we cease not only physically, but spiritually. Poets would write of endings, of final dawns and eternal nights, their words carrying both sorrow and wonder. Even in the last hours, humanity would be itself, questioning, creating, reflecting, loving. And perhaps that is the deepest truth hidden in this scenario. That no matter how vast the cosmos or how fragile our place within it, what defines us is not survival alone, but the ways in which we meet impermanence with meaning. Extend the perspective further still, beyond Earth, beyond humanity. Imagine alien civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Thousands of years from now, they might point telescopes toward the distant region of space where our solar system once thrived. They would detect the remnants of a supernova, clouds of gas and dust expanding outward, glowing faintly in the cold expanse. To them, it would be a scientific curiosity, a marker in their star maps. They would not know of Earth, of oceans and mountains, of stories and dreams. They would not know of the laughter of children, the songs sung in the glow of fires, the countless acts of kindness that filled our days. They would see only light, only remnants, and yet in that light, our existence would continue, transformed into beauty across the night sky. This is the paradox of imagining the Sun's explosion. For us, it is everything. For the universe, it is simply one more transformation among billions. Yet in holding both truths, we discover a deeper meaning. Our lives may be brief on the scale of stars, but within that brevity lies richness, intensity, significance. The Sun's imagined death is a reminder that the value of life is not measured in cosmic duration, but in the presence we bring to each moment. Let us then slow the pace and imagine one last sunrise. The sky glows softly with shades of violet and gold. Birds stir in the trees, rivers shimmer in the light, and people rise to greet the day, unaware that it may be the final dawn. There is beauty in that unawareness, in the innocence of living without knowledge of the end, and yet there is also beauty in awareness itself, in looking upon the sun and knowing that it may not always be, and therefore choosing to cherish it more deeply. The Sun's explosion, whether tomorrow or in billions of years, is not only an ending but an invitation to live fully, to love deeply, to honor the fragile miracle of light while it still shines. What if the Sun exploded tomorrow? To continue this journey of thought, let us imagine not just the physical and cultural impact, but the intimate, personal way such an event would ripple through every life on Earth. Picture yourself standing at a window in the early morning, the sky still dark with the promise of dawn. Suddenly, the horizon glows with an intensity far greater than any sunrise you have ever seen. The world outside brightens beyond comprehension, shadows vanish, and everything appears bathed in a searing brilliance. For a brief instant, it feels almost divine, as though the heavens have opened. But within that brilliance comes the realization that this is not the birth of a new day, but the death of the star that gave birth to all days. In that moment, the distinction between beauty and terror collapses, leaving only awe. Slowly, the light fades, and the familiar rhythm of time begins to break apart. Days no longer follow nights. Instead, an endless twilight settles over the earth, cold and unyielding. The warmth that has always been a given begins to slip away, like breath in winter air. Within hours, the air chills, and within days, ice begins to claim the rivers and lakes. Oceans, vast and deep, slowly surrender their heat, releasing clouds of steam that freeze into glittering crystals drifting across the sky. Forests grow silent, their leaves brittle, their branches heavy with frost. The earth itself, once alive with motion and color, begins to resemble a fragile sculpture of glass. And yet, humanity would not disappear instantly. In the face of such enormity, people would cling to survival with remarkable determination. Shelters would be built, fires kindled, energy stored wherever possible. Families would huddle together in basements and bunkers, sharing warmth not just of bodies, but of stories and songs. Communities would gather in the darkness, seeking comfort in each other's presence. Even as the world outside froze, the inner fire of human spirit would resist. It is in times of greatest loss that the strength of connection shines brightest. Now consider how science would interpret these final days. Satellites, if they survived the first waves of radiation, would record data of unparalleled importance. The dying star would flood the solar system with bursts of energy, waves of particles racing through the magnetic fields of Earth. Instruments would capture patterns of light, strange auroras stretching across the sky in curtains of green, violet and crimson, glowing even as the world below shivered. For scientists, there would be no comfort, but there would be meaning. In those last hours, humanity would know more about the life and death of stars than ever before, a final gift of knowledge written in fire. Think also of art. In the shadow of the sun's explosion, poets would write verses by candlelight, words trembling with both despair and wonder. Painters would capture their final visions of a world illuminated by strange colors. Musicians would play not to banish fear, but to honor existence, their notes rising into the night like offerings. Art would become both elegy and celebration, a way of saying that life mattered, that beauty persisted even as the world unraveled. Religion, too, would find its voice. In temples and churches, in mosques and shrines, in quiet homes and silent forests, prayers would rise. Some would see the sun's explosion as judgment, others as fulfillment of prophecy, others still as a passage into a new form of existence. Theologies would shift, interpretations multiply, yet all would converge on the same recognition: that humanity stands small beneath the cosmos, yet carries within it the ability to seek meaning even in endings. As the earth continued to cool, silence would deepen. The voices of animals would fade. The forests would stand frozen, the seas hard as stone, the cities quiet except for the echoes of memory. And still the stars above would shine. In the absence of the sun, the night sky would blaze with clarity. Constellations more vivid than ever before, galaxies faint but discernible, a reminder that even as one light dies, countless others endure. For those who gaze upward, there would be solace in that vastness, comfort in knowing that the universe is larger than loss, that death is not the end, but a transformation. Eventually, humanity would dwindle, not because of weakness, but because no life can endure without warmth forever. The last shelters would fade, the last fires extinguished, the last voices quiet. And yet, even in that silence, the story of humanity would continue. The atoms of our bodies, once warmed by the sun, would scatter across the earth and in time across the cosmos. They would become part of new stars, new worlds, perhaps even new forms of life. The sun's explosion would be both an end and a beginning, a reminder that death in the cosmos is never final, but always a passage into something new. And so, the vision draws back to reflection. The sun's explosion tomorrow is unlikely, almost impossible within our lifetimes, yet imagining it changes us. It reminds us that every sunrise we see is precious, every moment of warmth a miracle, every connection a gift. It teaches us that permanence is an illusion, that even stars die, and that life's meaning is not in its duration but in its depth. What if the sun exploded tomorrow? The answer is not only in science or philosophy, but in the way we live now. To cherish the light while it shines, to love deeply while time allows, to create beauty, even when endings are inevitable. For in the end, it is not the star alone that matters, but the way we respond to its gift. And perhaps that is the final lesson, that even in the face of cosmic impermanence, the human heart can find wonder, gratitude, and peace. What if the sun exploded tomorrow? Imagine now shifting perspective, away from Earth and out into the solar system, where each planet and moon would bear witness to the star's sudden end in its own way. Mercury, closest to the sun, would be vaporized almost instantly, its rocky surface shattered and swallowed by the inferno. Venus, with its thick toxic clouds, would see its atmosphere torn apart, its perpetual storms evaporating into silence. Mars, once dreamed of as a second home for humanity, would glow briefly with a brilliance never known before, only to cool into deeper stillness. The gas giants, massive and distant, would not be destroyed entirely, but their delicate balance of orbits, their rings and moons, would tremble under the sudden absence of the sun's steady gravity, scattering like beads loosed from a broken thread. The outer edges of the solar system, the icy bodies of Pluto and beyond, would drift into darkness, aimless wanderers in the interstellar void. Yet amid this destruction, the cosmic cycle would not end. The sun's explosion would scatter elements forged over billions of years into the fabric of space. Hydrogen, helium, carbon, iron, oxygen, each released into the universe, each carrying the potential to seed new stars, new planets, and new possibilities. It is this cycle of creation and dissolution that defines the cosmos. Stars die so that others may be born. The very atoms in our bodies, the calcium in our bones and the iron in our blood, were once forged in the heart of stars long vanished. The sun's end would be catastrophic for us, but it would also be part of this eternal pattern, where endings are simply the prelude to beginnings we cannot yet imagine. Consider now how distant civilizations, if they exist, might see this event. Light travels across space, and the sun's explosion would be visible as a sudden, brilliant flare racing outward. On planets circling other stars, astronomers might watch with awe as our sun vanished from the heavens, its light ceasing suddenly after billions of years of steady glow. For them it would be a cosmic spectacle, a data point, a mystery to study. For us it would be the end of everything we have ever known. This duality is striking. What is tragedy for one world can be wonder for another, reminding us that perspective shapes reality as much as events themselves. Back on Earth, in those imagined hours after the explosion, the rhythm of human life would shift. Governments might attempt to maintain order, broadcasting final messages, offering guidance, urging calm. Scientists would issue their last reports, trying to capture as much information as possible before the systems failed. Philosophers and spiritual leaders would seek words to soothe the collective heart. Families would gather, holding each other close, knowing that no amount of technology or wealth could change what was unfolding. In the quiet, people might find themselves contemplating the moments that truly mattered. The laughter of a child, the comfort of friendship, the beauty of sunsets now gone forever. In this sense, the sun's end strips away illusion, revealing that life's essence is not in what we build or possess, but in the simple connections we share. Let us drift even further into the reflection of time. The sun's explosion tomorrow is a hypothetical, yet stars do die, and ours will too, though billions of years from now. To meditate on that reality is to place ourselves within a scale so vast it humbles the ego. Civilizations rise and fall, species flourish and fade, yet the cosmos continues indifferent and magnificent. In such a scale, the question of what we do with our brief existence grows more urgent. If the sun's light is finite, then each day we spend beneath it carries immeasurable value. Every choice to love, to create, to care becomes part of how we honor the light while it is here. Imagine humanity preparing for such inevitabilities in distant futures. Perhaps long before the sun reaches its true end, we will have developed the means to travel to other stars, carrying with us the memory of our home. In this vision, the sun's eventual death becomes not an end but a migration, a step into greater cosmic adventure. Our descendants might look back with gratitude, recognizing that the warmth of this single star was the cradle of their existence, the spark that allowed consciousness to emerge. And so the sun's death, whether tomorrow or in billions of years, becomes both an elegy and a celebration, a reminder of fragility and resilience. Now return to the present, to the quiet fact that the sun still burns, steady and strong, sending its golden light across the void, nurturing life on this small blue planet. Its explosion tomorrow is only imagination, but imagination itself is powerful. It teaches us to see with new eyes, to appreciate with fresh awareness. The next time you feel sunlight on your skin, remember how easily it could be gone, and let that awareness deepen your gratitude. For it is in the shadow of endings that the brightness of the present shines most clearly. What if the sun exploded tomorrow? The question lingers not as a prediction, but as a mirror, reflecting our place in the cosmos and reminding us that life is both fragile and profound. To live with this awareness is to honor the gift of each day, to live more fully, to love more deeply, to wonder more openly. And in that perhaps lies the true answer, not in fearing the end, but in embracing the present, knowing that the light we carry within us can outlast even the stars. Imagine standing beneath the night sky and realizing that every star you see is a story of both birth and eventual death. Our sun is one of countless lights scattered across the galaxy, each following the same rhythm of ignition, brilliance, and fading. To contemplate the possibility of its explosion tomorrow is to confront the truth that permanence is an illusion, that what feels eternal is in fact fleeting. Yet within this fleetingness lies meaning. The fact that the sun has burned for billions of years, nurturing Earth and all life upon it, is itself a miracle. Its warmth has shaped oceans, sculpted mountains, and inspired poets across civilizations. Even if it vanished tomorrow, its legacy would remain in every breath we have taken and every memory we have created beneath its light. Let this thought slow your breath. The sun, though distant and immense, connects to us intimately, not only through energy but through story. It is the silent witness to humanity's rise, to our struggles and triumphs, to every act of kindness and every dream of the future. Its explosion tomorrow would be an end beyond imagining, yet it would also be the ultimate reminder that life's value does not come from its length, but from the depth with which it is lived. And so the question of what if the sun exploded tomorrow becomes less about fear and more about clarity. How would you choose to spend your remaining hours beneath its light? Perhaps that question, asked not in panic but in calm reflection, is the true gift of this thought experiment. For in answering it, we discover not only what matters most to us, but how to honor the miracle of existence while it lasts.